Hello, everyone. We're just waiting a couple of seconds to give everyone a chance to read this slide and figure out where to click on the captions and translations in case you need it. So it's going to be there for a couple more seconds while people keep on joining. The number it's going high, so that's exciting.
Oh.
Yay! So now we can go. Hello and welcome here to this small sit, the first one in December, the last month of the year. I'm Andrea Ferreira. I'm Manomet's Science Communications Manager, and you might hear something funny, particular, or exciting about my accent. That's because everyone at Manomet, we're so international, just like shorebirds. So we're all over the Americas. And I'm here today with Ali Hazer and Abby Sterling. They're both my colleagues here at Manomet. Ali is our shorebirds biologist with Manomet's Georgia Bight Shorebird Conservation Initiative. And Dr. Abby Sterling, she's our Manomet's Shorebird Initiative Director for the Southern News, a very new title that she's kicking in this year. So we're here today to have a lovely conversation with them about a program that I know they are very passionate about. We're gonna talk about how science, stewardship, and ecotourism can work hand in hand to protect the coast. So before they start, we're gonna have some housekeeping notes for today's webinar. The first one is, again, make sure to check below the menu and try to set up captions if you need them or translation in the language that you prefer. Maybe you can put us to speak German. Might be exciting. Then also, yeah, we were testing that. Apparently, I can speak German if you click the right button or any language. That's going to be fun. Then also, if you have any questions, and we hope you do, please make sure to write them down in the Q&A box that's also in the menu. And lastly, just we would love everyone to just write in the chat where you're zooming in from today. And with that said, welcome Ali and Abby to this small set, and everyone, the floor is yours. The virtual floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I am going to share our presentation. Is it working, Allie? Yes?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for joining. We are so excited to get to chat with everyone about this incredible program that we've been lucky enough to be a part of here in Georgia. Um, so, as Andrea mentioned, we are part of the Georgia Bight Shorebird Conservation Initiative, which launched in 2018. And this program has become a really important part of our work, engaging with a lot of different and wonderful communities along the Georgia coast. So first of all, just want to kind of lay out our flight plan here. And we're going to start with a little bit of background about the Georgia Bight because it's a really incredible part of the world and we can't wait to introduce you to it if you're not familiar with the region. We're going to talk briefly about some of the threats that shorebirds face in this region and then introduce you all to this program, the Coastal Awareness and Responsible Ecotourism Certification Program. Um, dig in a little bit about what the CARE certification program involves, and then talk a little bit about some of the larger impacts that this program has had on the Georgia coast and within the communities that it supports. And we'll wrap up with how you can get involved and support CARE. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to the Georgia Bight. The Georgia Bight is a really cool part of the world. It is the curved part of the coastline that technically stretches from Cape Hatteras all the way down to Cape Canaveral. And the focus of our work is really along the northern Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina coast. Some people call this area the Mid-Atlantic Bight or the South Atlantic Bight, depending on where you are. But we kind of dub the whole region the Georgia Bight. And this area is really important. And because it is so important, we realized that we really wanted to help protect the valuable habitat and resources that exist here. There's an incredible network of partners, loads of people that have dedicated their careers towards protecting this habitat. And so we feel really lucky to get to be a small part in that larger network. The Georgia Bight Shorebird Conservation Initiative is all about sort of understanding what we have in this region, and we'll talk a little bit about why it is so incredible in just a minute here. Um, but thinking about how we can protect those valuable resources through building this larger regional network to ensure that the really incredible shorebird habitats that this area supports are maintained. And then thinking about how we can use research and collaboration to ensure that emerging threats are accounted for and how we can plan for habitat in the future. So there are many shorebirds that use this region, and sort of the most basic idea behind this work is really you see every little dot along the coast here is a barrier island, but these birds don't restrict themselves to just a single barrier island. They're bouncing between islands, they're bouncing between states, and indeed they're traveling the entire hemisphere. And so if we want to help ensure that shorebird populations are stable and recovering, we really need to make sure that every little spot on this map is working together to protect these places for shorebirds. And the Georgia coast is a really incredible place. We are uh, internationally recognized. There's 4 Wizard sites now just in the Georgia and South Carolina coast. And we're essentially um, the perfect recipe of habitat conditions for shorebirds. Along the Georgia coast, because of many different features with the geology and geomorphology of the coast, we have these really incredible habitat conditions. We've got an extensive network of undeveloped barrier islands. We have a very high tidal range. So along the Georgia and South Carolina coast, we have 2 high tides daily, and they're usually 6 to 8 feet, but sometimes we can see tides in excess of 10 feet even now. Um, because of those huge tides, we have these really beautiful sandbars and mud flats that are constantly growing and shifting and accreting. And then we also have huge river systems that are bringing down sediment and nutrients to feed all of the invertebrates that feed our shorebirds. If you take a zoomed out look of the Georgia coast, we have a very wiggly coast. So it's about 100 linear miles, but really it's almost an infinite distance from one end to the other. And that's because we've got very minimal amounts of shoreline engineering and really robust inlet systems that are constantly supplying food and resources for shorebirds. And so on an annual basis, we estimate that the Georgia Bight, the coasts of Georgia and South Carolina particularly, support more than 400,000 shorebirds every single year. Along the Georgia coast, we have about 30% of the Rufa red knots. We have about 30% of the Great Lakes piping plovers. And the other very cool thing about the Georgia coast is that we're important for shorebirds year round. So some places in the world are hot spots during key times of the year, but because of our pretty mild climate, all of those great resources that I just mentioned, we have shorebirds really at any time of the year. So during spring and fall migration, we have huge numbers of birds moving through. We support very large numbers of birds all throughout the winter because of those nice mild conditions. And then we also have a couple of species that nest on our coast, including this super adorable little peanut, the Wilson's plover that you see there, and American oyster catchers. So a really important place. And the Georgia Bight Shorebird Conservation Initiative was launched to sort of help answer that question of how do we keep what we've got. Along the Georgia coast, just like many other places in the Atlantic Flyway, there are a number of different threats that shorebirds face. Heavy recreational use of our beaches. Georgia, in particular, has only about 3 of the barrier islands with beaches that are publicly accessible, but on those beaches, we can see really, really huge numbers of people. And so people, dogs, and you know, heavy recreational use of public beaches or remote places can make it so that shorebirds don't have the resources that they need, which is quiet places to eat and feed. We see things like strong storm surges, high tides that are causing flooding conditions, impacting habitat. And then even new emerging threats like non-native species. These two bottom pictures, there's a hog feeding on horseshoe crabs, and the picture just to the left of that in the center there is hog damage, where these animals are basically digging up places where horseshoe crabs have been spawning. And horseshoe crab spawning is, of course, a really important resource for our shorebirds. So we do see that we've got a whole host of different issues that are not unique to the Georgia coast, but some things make it a little bit more challenging, right? We've got really nice weather almost year round. Right now it's a little bit cold on the coast, but we still see a lot of people out on the beaches. So disturbance in Georgia is actually a year round issue. And then we see things like habitat loss and climate change impacting habitat. And then for our beach nesting species, we also see pretty low rates of reproductive success, both because of all of those threats that we listed, but also predation pressures as well. But um, we have a really incredible toolbox of solutions along the Georgia coast. And that goes back to this incredible network of partners that I've mentioned now a couple of times. There's a really strong community of people that are dedicated towards shorebird conservation across the hemisphere, but also right on the Georgia coast. And so we really rely on partnerships for all of these kind of solutions: education and outreach, research, and management. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about the issues of recreational disturbance and some of the approaches that Allie and I have been taking over the last number of years to think about how we can reduce some of that pressure for our shorebirds. We've developed a three-pronged approach to reducing recreational disturbance. We know that if we want to work with communities, we have to tailor messaging to those communities, understand what those communities value, and think about how we can creatively build partnerships with the communities to have buy-in to shift behavior to protect these places for shorebirds. So we've really tried to come at it from every single angle that we could possibly think of. As I mentioned, we've only got a few beaches on the Georgia coast where the public can easily access those beaches that are drivable. And people can just park and then walk out on the beach. And so at those places, we've been working to use a wildlife beach area to set aside the most important habitat and really direct efforts for stewardship and volunteers to go to those high use places. So we've been working on St. Simons and Tybee Island to really raise awareness around the wildlife beach value of certain key areas. And then we've got another sort of interesting and tricky problem along the Georgia coast. A lot of the areas are really inaccessible. They're hard to get to. Georgia is a very watery place. And so unless you have a boat, you really can't get out to some of the other areas on the coast. But it also makes management and enforcement really difficult. And so we've been working with communities that are accessing those more remote areas through these second two prongs. One is the care course, which we're going to talk about today, but we've also been working really closely with the recreational boater community to develop outreach and messaging and education and signage to really help people who go out to these remote places understand the value of that habitat and understand the simple actions they can take to reduce disturbance. But today, this afternoon, we're talking about the care course, which Allie and I love so much. It's one of our favorite things that we get to be a part of. This program started in 2019 with a state of Georgia coastal incentive grant. I was lucky enough to partner with folks at UGA Marine Extension and Georgia Sea Grant. My main collaborator and fellow mastermind was Katie Higgins, who's not at UGA anymore. She's out west and we adore her. And our goal with this program was really to think about how we could create partnerships and help educate eco tour guides specifically about the issues of recreational disturbance and how they could continue to use and utilize these really sensitive, precious locations while reducing disturbance. This was in partnership with with Marine Extension, but also with Georgia DNR, both the Wildlife Resources Division and the Coastal Division. And the main idea here was that our coast depends on these strong connections. And the CARE course serves as a really important way to strengthen these connections. So this slide just gives you a little bit of a taste of all of the different people that we get to engage with and collaborate with on this project. The project started with building out a steering committee, and so we had folks from many of these different realms on our steering committee, and we really used those folks to help us understand what the eco tour guides needed on the coast and what they would be interested in participating in so that we could bring them into this conversation and help them learn more about the coast, but also learn more about shorebirds and how they could reduce disturbance to shorebirds. So this is a huge range of different folks. Obviously, eco-tour companies and guides were really important, but all sorts of resource managers, different working groups, getting the municipalities involved, and just really trying to think about every single piece of the network that we could engage as we developed this course. So we developed the course. We got the funding in 2019, kicked it off in 2020. Our original goal was to create sort of a workshop program, but then the COVID pandemic happened and we had to shift. And so we ended up shifting to an online learning platform that ended up being really incredible. So suddenly now we had sort of a captive audience for a number of weeks, and we could incorporate many different things into this program. But the two main objectives of the program are really thinking about how we can partner with the ecotourism community to build support for conservation action. And through that, we wanted to reduce recreational disturbance in coastal habitats and incentivize responsible ecotourism through this certification process. And so now I'm going to kick it over to Allie, and she's going to give you sort of a deep dive into the nuts and bolts of the CARE certification program.
Thank you, Abby. So, welcome to our CARE certification program. This is a little sneak peek into what the online platform can look like. We use a platform on this system called LearnDash, and people can log in and work at their own pace. And this is a 4-week long program where we are allowing guides to work at their own time on their computer, and then we meet together on Wednesday nights on Zoom to talk about different parts of that unit. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But on the side panel, you can see we go week by week and we have different topics. So the first week is amazing. We have these CARE introductions where guides that have been working alongside other guiding companies out on the water, visiting the same spots, are logging onto the Zoom and having a nice, formal, safe, warm introduction to each other about where they work, what they do, and why they love to do what they like to do. This is all part of our plan in building this community of guides who have this like shared purpose together to take care of the places that they care about and rely on. These other pictures show you our amazing logo with a Wimbrow Wilson's plover on there. And then one of our classes, one of our recent classes at our CARE field day that we have. And so guides work through these programs. There's lessons built in. In these lessons, there's amazing videos that have been recorded. And there's quizzes, there's contracts to sign for pledging to be good to wildlife, tips on photography, all of these different aspects. You can go ahead, Abby. So taking a little bit closer of a look into one of my favorite units of this course, of course, is focusing on Georgia's shorebirds. So working with all of these guides on the coast, they are going to these remote places that a lot of our shorebirds rely on, and in giving them the information that they can share with the people that visit throughout the whole year, we can help keep an eye on these habitats that these birds are relying on. And so you can see here, this is a little bit further of a course outline of all of the lessons that we provide throughout the year. So we start off with this coastal ecology of Georgia. Then we do shorebird and habitat conservation, human connections to the coast, and then responsible ecotourism. And the last lesson is an in-person field day. Off to the bottom right, you can see what one of our Zoom meetings looks like on a Wednesday evening. So these guys will work through this whole lesson, this unit. They'll have some quizzes. They'll be able to share their feedback about certain things, their opinions. And then every single Wednesday, we all get on this Zoom for about an hour and a half. And we invite two professionals from each of these lessons. And they're professionals from along the coast that are the experts in that topic for that unit. So for the first one, we have, and I saw her join this today, Stacia Hendricks. She'll be there at the Coastal Ecology of Georgia lesson. And then Joel Kostka, who does amazing work in the Georgia marshes. We'll have them both come on and they'll do a short presentation each about their work and about their overview and sharing their point of view about the coast and their experience. And then these guides, all of these guides on the Zoom that you see there, have that opportunity to talk to them one-on-one, build these connections, and be able to ask any questions and share their personal experiences from the water. So we're working on building that community of guides, but also connecting these guides to all of those other connections that Abby was showing you earlier about. You can go to the next, Abby. So after we complete these amazing lessons, we have this field day component. Here are some photos from some of our field days. We've gone to oyster rakes and looked for, different geological formations along the coast, talked through those. We've been to Wausau and went on bird walks. We take these guides out by boat from the UGA Marine Extension Georgia Sea Grant. And we share and put everything into practice that we've learned throughout the course. And then we add more material to it. We share different ways that we like to teach our visitors to the coast. We work on identification of wildlife, interpretation, and then also we have a field trip over to Pinpoint, which is a Gullah Geechee community outreach center there, and we share all of these different things throughout the whole day, and we then meet inside of the UGA Marine Extension and talk through how to keep up your certification, how to use our logos, how to make yourself marketable as a guide, inviting them to be part of these communities that we've been building. And then we also provide them with, you can go to the next slide, a field guide. And this field guide is a nice waterproof rectangular little field guide that these guides can put on their boats or kayaks and take out into the field with them. And you can see here, you can look in the index, there's birds, of course, but there's sea turtles, there's a guide to invasive plants, there's references. It allows the guides to have a deeper understanding of the where to go, how to talk about certain things, and be able to relate that with their visitors. And this is kind of used as more of like an incentive for these guides to see through the rest of the course, have that field day, and then be able to have these resources available to them too. In the future, we are planning on updating this more. We've gotten some great feedback from our community, and so this is the first printing, and it's very helpful out on the boat and in the water for them to use. And then moving on, go ahead, Abby. Yeah, we've got these amazing collaborators. So out of all the slides that are nice and pretty, this is one of my favorite ones because over to the right, you can see a map of all of our guides along the coast. So far, we're still working on more, and maybe this map might need a bigger scale in the future. But take a look here. So when people want to visit the Georgia coast and get out on the water, we always recommend, and our partner organizations are recommending that visitors look up our certified care guides to take them out. That way they can be a part of conservation. These guides are up to date on current research. They do citizen science with their visitors. This is like a different kind of ecotourism that is very marketable and respectful, and people want to make a good impact on the earth. So when they visit, we share this map, and this map actually lives on the main homepage for CARE, which is on the UGA website, which we'll share with you guys later in the in the presentation. But then take a look over to the left. We've got an amazing, awesome list of course collaborators. So we've got professionals from all different walks of those connections that we showed you earlier, whether they're resource managers, they're teachers, they've been doing marketing there for decades, or they've been out in the marshes their entire career. We've brought in all of these collaborators to create this material. They've been there to be part of steering committees. They've done content creation. They're some of our yearly speakers. And then, they also go through and add in any new materials that might come across. And so we've got this awesome group of collaborators. You can go to the next slide, Abby. And it's all working towards building this community like I talked to you about. So after these guides finish this course, they are invited to join this platform, which happens to be our Facebook page for now, where they can join as a group and be able to talk to each other a little bit more. So like bridging the gap between these companies, providing events and ways for them to share their opinion about certain things. Sometimes we'll have surveys or polls or calls to action for certain things. And this webpage, this Facebook group is a great way for us to do that. We also, in order for our guides to keep their certification every year, it's important for them to build on their knowledge and be part of a community. And so this is where we post a lot of those opportunities for them to continue their development and their education and their volunteering hours towards that recertification, which I'll tell you about more shortly. But, in building this community, there's been some really great media coming out. You can see Abby there encouraging people to join this ecotourism guide. And you know what? This is really kicked off. We've gotten great media. It's been talked about at several conferences. And so this community is a constantly growing and evolving thing. You can go to the next slide, Abby. And so this is I pulled this together because after some of our guides went through our program, I was looking around on social platforms, and I got to find these really beautiful little posts about our program. And so these guides are actually very proud to be working with us and proud to have this marketable certification. And so these are just a couple of those I found online. And so it's creating these connections and getting really great coverage along the coast. You can go to the next slide, Abby. And so we just finished out. So this year was our 5th year of care. And next year, we're moving into our 6th year of care. And we've had at least 77 people participate in the program, go through the online program with all of us. And we have 55 guides currently certified. And then every single year, we have these guides provide us with some metrics so we can understand our reach. So the whole point was, protecting these remote places. These people are out there when we're not. So these guides have interacted with, just since January 2025 of this program, about 26,000 people have been reached through our guides. And, I'm sure that number is even greater now as we're getting towards the end of the year. But, this is a growing community. There's more partnerships. There's opportunities for these guides to be called upon for different, research opportunities, say like with our bird work, Abby, like we've been out in the field and we've been wanting to do like some horseshoe crab spawning surveys, or getting people out to go and post signs up to protect seabird colonies. We've been able to say, hold on, let me contact our care guides and find some people that would want to be out there and help us and that care about it the way we do. And then in turn, these guides will be really excited to have a story about this place that they care about as well to share with people. So this is a really great way of protecting the places that we care about, the birds care about, other wildlife too, and then these guides care about. And so through this, a lot of this talking and collaboration, and it is a small world, we've had a lot of amazing events that have that have continued on off of this. So like the Sapelo Island signer um, uh, has sponsored events just for our care guides to go and get more enriched knowledge about Sapelo Island in particular. Or, we've had experiences where we can share this program with other, parts in other geographical areas that would like to expand or scale up this program or adapt it to reach their needs. So we're getting some really great results from this community. To the next slide, Abby. And so this is one of my favorite events that we look forward to every year now. So in the beginning, we had guides recertify on a platform online. And we realized that in order to have this community that wants to network and know each other really well, we've got to hang out. And so we've created these networking hangouts. You can see the fabulous Katie Higgins up there in the middle picture, right next to one of our care guides in that photo. She was a huge help in getting these networking hangouts going. They're held at the UGA Marine Extension, and they have been funded by the NOAA's Marine Debris Program, where we were able to provide all of our care guides that wanted to come and sign up with a free dinner and with a demonstration of fun activity where we all took um, like discarded shrimp nets and created trash pickup bags out of them. And we're all around these tables. It's pretty cold. It's January, but we're all grinning and we're making these bags and we're building community. And then we all are around this room and we're sharing how our year went and what care means to us. And this is also when they can voice any type of issues they're having. We can find out where they need more support. And so we've got companies that have been around for like 25 years and then a guide who just started this year sitting right next to each other. So there's all of this bonding. The ego is not in the room. Just a ton of really amazing shared experiences. And so this kind of interactions, like all the people that are on the water in your area, they're having these moments together. And so it's really bridging that gap. And one of our guides reported that they had visitors from 25 different states that one year. And so when we start thinking about our impact, and, it's very important for us to have these hangouts so that we can hear who they're interacting with, how valuable this information is, and to keep things moving forward and keep things fresh, new, and making sure we're, helping them market themselves as well. So it's been awesome. The last thing I want to say about this hangout is there was not like a dry eye left in the room by the time this hangout was done. We were all just really, we're all super passionate and invested in the place we live in. And so one of the things we took away from this was that one of the guides got up that had been working for years, was one of the OG guides in the area. And they said that they were really proud to be part of this community because they can see that everybody in the same room as them has this shared responsibility to take care of the places that we depend on and we care about. And to hear someone that has been around for a long time, that has this wisdom but also could have an opinion that you know um would really have some deep insight for us, to have that feeling about our group of guides felt very validating. Whereas the guides that just started that year, they felt more confident out on the water. They felt like they belonged. And so imagine starting your new journey of appreciating and protecting the Georgia coast, feeling like you belonged. So that is a very special part about that course. You can go ahead, Abby. And so that leads me to Welcome to 2026 course. Our registration will begin on January 2nd. We do take some early inquiries and we're super available for anybody who wants to talk to us about it. We're looking for, in order to keep this community to the correct audience that we're looking for is to make sure that we're talking to the people, taking people out to these remote sites, or informing people that come to the coast that plan to go out to sites that affect wildlife. So that means like boat charters, on the water educators. We've had people from the Tybee Island Marine Science Center. We've had people working in parks and rec, ecotourism guides, owners and operators of these different buildings and charter companies and ecotourism guides. They're all invited to apply, and this is our flyer for the CARE program for next year, and you can feel free to scan that QR code to learn more. And it also takes you, this is a flyer that we put out at several businesses and things like that, so that when visitors come, they can find the right guide in their area to take them out to the places that they would like to see. And so lastly, I'm going to wrap this up with thanking you. And Abby, feel free to join in here, but thank you guys so much for your time and your support. And it feels so great to be able to share something we are so passionate about. Um, we love being able to work on the Georgia and South Carolina coast and working with these different communities because we feel like we belong there too. And so thanks to Manomet and everyone today for being here to listen to us. And I know Andrea has some Q&A session coming up, but this slide shows you that if you are so moved to, feel free to scan this QR code. It'll take you to Manomet. And then if you scroll down, it'll show you how to write a comment in to support this program personally, and you can write that it's for the Georgia Bite. And with that said, Abby, I'll turn it back over to you for a minute.
Yeah, thank you all so much for joining. One other thing was we know there's a few care guides that have signed on and have joined us today. And so if anybody that's taken the care program wants to share any stories, we'd love that too. It has been a really impactful program, as Allie shared. And I think for us and for the guides, we all feel like we've been able to learn from each other. Tourism is growing on the Georgia coast, and now this community has a mechanism to help shape the path and guide the path of tourism as it grows to make sure that we're protecting these vulnerable and special places. And it's a way to just help them build pride for their place and market themselves, continue to learn and grow and be more connected to the community. So there's been some really cool stories of guides helping with posting or helping advocate for more signage to protect places, or really cool rare shorebirds that have gotten them through the slow season because all of a sudden they're connected now to this birding community, and they've got folks that want to go out to this one remote place where there's a bar-tailed godwit. So some really neat ripples coming out of this program, I think, to help make things more sustainable and protect them into the future. So I'll pass it back to you, Andrea, if you want to take over.
Yes, thank you, Ellen, Abby. I think now everyone can see why I said you were so passionate about it at the beginning. So we have some questions, and I see some interest also from other areas in the US, other areas from outside the US about the CARE program. And one of the questions that I have here is, what would it take to scale the CARE course to other parts of the US or the Americas?
Yeah, I can take a start at that, and then Allie, you can chime in too. So we did a lot of background work to understand the community specifically, and we worked really hard to develop material that was very place-based and relevant, and develop that in collaboration with the guides. As Ellie said, like there's guides that have spent their whole career out in these places, and they spend more time out there than either Allie or I could ever be lucky enough to be out there. So making sure that it really is a place-based program is important, to make sure that you've got the buy-in from the guides. So we did the research on the beginning side to figure out what they wanted. They wanted community, they wanted collaboration, they wanted more learning opportunities, and then we really crafted the program around that. So I think there are other examples of programs like this. But for us, we really wanted to make sure that the shorebird component was really significant and helping people understand disturbance. But we layered that in with the values of the community. So I think there's great opportunity to bring in other geographies, but it has to be done with a good understanding of what is happening on the ground and what that community needs.
I second that. And I do think, before proposing an idea or anything, is having that steering committee or having a group of people that are invested in their coast to talk to you, that are partner organizations, and talking about capacity that they have. That's a huge first step as well. So,
Thank you. We have like 5 minutes and I have like 3 questions. So let's see how we can move on. So following up with that question is what other coastal communities or habitats outside of Georgia do you think might be strong candidates for a future expansion? Maybe it's a secret yet and you can't tell, but
Well, our program works across the Georgia Bight, so we're really excited about collaborating with partners in South Carolina, and that's one thing that we're excited about. But I feel like um, we are so lucky at Manomet as an organization to have so many connections across the hemisphere and so many folks working in all of these really precious places. So I guess I'm not gonna make a short list of places, but I think we all have hopes and dreams, and at least taking some of the bigger lessons learned from this program and thinking about how we can all work collaboratively to find paths forward to engage, the ecotourism community, the people that are on the ground, so that we can really build out the partnerships to protect these places.
thank you, Abby. Yes, I think as someone from Latin America, that is key in everything that we do is just having the involvement of local people and not just bringing a program from somewhere else and trying to apply it. So I think that's so relevant, what you just
Yeah.
mentioned. We have another question. First, with a comment, it says, thank you for the overview, so inspiring. Are there audits or other ways that the CARE certification is monitored over time?
Do you want to jump on that, Ellie, or I'm happy to keep rolling with these questions?
keep rolling, but we are collecting, data and metrics each year from this, and we have pulled together like reach numbers, and I do personally go through all of the lists of all these guides and make sure that they feel connected and hear feedback from them personally, and I try not to let anybody fall off of the CARE radar. So, but I'll pass it back to you, Abby.
Yeah, I guess just thinking about how we track impacts, we do ask our guides to report on the number of folks they take out, but then even more specific, we ask them to estimate how much of the information that they share with their guests is actually from the CARE course. So that number that Allie shared is actually relevant to CARE rather than just the number of bodies in boats out on a tour. And then we are tracking their hours for learning opportunities and for citizen science. So that's the other piece is, folks doing ISS or an eBird list or collecting data from marine debris. So those are sort of some of the metrics that we use, but then we also have some like a before and after knowledge assessment for the folks who are taking the course. So kind of a short-term assessment and then a more long-term impact assessment.
And we also have opportunities for these guides to be on panels and at conferences that we're a part of. So we do always make sure we're keeping track of who's doing what and supporting the course and hearing that point of view from a guide. So lots of good opportunities for them with that.
Really exciting, and it's starting out soon, just beginning of the year. So it's going to be very exciting for you. So we're running out of time. I think this was a very exciting call Zoom for all of us to be in and just feel a little bit of your excitement about the program and the shorebirds that you have in Georgia, the Georgia Bight, so wonderful. And before we go, I just want to say that the reason why we still have this slide on with the QR code and is that we welcome your generosity. Manomet, everyone like with Manomet are a nonprofit organization, and by supporting Manomet, you're supporting this kind of work, but throughout the Western Hemisphere. And that means throughout the Americas, just from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego in Chile and Argentina. So please consider this making an end of year gift. You can scan the QR code, or if you forget, just visit our website, follow us on social media, and also subscribe to our newsletter so you can find all the exciting news and sometimes scientific information that we're publishing out, because we have a great team of scientists that I want to brag about and say that they're all superheroes in the shorebird communities and the fisheries communities as well. So thank you everyone to joining us today, and we hope to see you again in 2026. Bye.
Thank you.
If anyone has questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you.
Bye.
Shout out to the care guides who made it tonight. You're my heroes.
Bye.